Hello, my name is Jackson, and I'm your substitute teacher today. Okay, so Baby Jackson probably won't be your substitute teacher today, but we are talking about Chapter 22, Lesson 1, and this is going to be Part 1 because the lesson's too long for one day. So today's lesson is essentially the history of science. Tomorrow is going to be more history of science since I'm breaking this mamma jamma down into two. We've got medieval scientists, Greeks, Romans, and a lot of astronomy. So science, when you get down to brass tacks, is just the study of the world and how things work. By definition, mankind has been studying science since the first time they stopped to figure anything out. What makes this green stuff come from the ground? What is this water falling from the sky? And why does this water smell funny, yet taste so good? So, as technology advanced in the simplest of ways, like we talked about way back in Marking Period 1, like the discovery of agriculture and things like that, they were all using science. Better tools, improved farming methods, using the stars to determine when to plant crops. These were all the earliest forms of science. Now, the Greeks and Romans were very scientific people, making leaps and bounds in multiple areas. They would develop theories or ideas about how an event might play out based on experience, what they've seen before. Their theories did not always turn out to be correct, as they did not always test their theories. For example, the ancient astronomer Ptolemy, this is not Ptolemy, had this theory that the sun and the planets revolved around the Earth. This was called the geocentric theory. I'm going to put this kid away. Now, after the fall of Rome, science in Western Europe was put on the back burner. It was a very religious time. Most science was preserved in the Middle East, as Arab scholars copied the works of the classics into their libraries. Now, after the Crusades, when knowledge is rediscovered by the West, there was a renewed interest in science. Yeah, it's coinciding with the Renaissance. So how did the West reconcile the introduction of science with the basic absolutism of the church? Well, men like Thomas Aquinas argue that you could believe in science as well as God. Like maybe God was behind the science. So it wasn't long before the age of exploration. We learned so much about the spread of science and knowledge across the globe. Helped facilitate more science. Universities were being built. Science, once again in the West, was on the up and up. Now that leads us to new ideas about the universe. Around the 1500s, scientists began to realize that math was a big part of science. You probably know this now. I see if there's kids that are doing well at math, they're usually doing well at science. Or if they're struggling at one, they're usually struggling at the other. They're very much tied together. They also figured out that they had to do experiments to prove theories. These profound thoughts led to the scientific revolution. That leads us to our funny picture here that may be too much pop culture and too old for you, but this is Albert Einstein in a Che poster. Che was a violent revolutionary of, I believe, Central or South America. Alright, so it wasn't violent like the Einstein-Che pic above would indicate, so much as the scientific revolution was a change in the way people thought about science and the world around them. So the first field of science to really embrace the scientific revolution was astronomy. Nicholas Copernicus was a Polish astronomer who wrote a book called On the Revolution of Heavenly Spheres. In his book, Copernicus challenged the theory that God had made Earth the center of the universe, instead going with the heliocentric theory that the Earth and the planets orbited the sun. Crazy. He also said, well, the church was not pleased with Copernicus' theory. They were advocates of the geocentric theory. Alright, so there was another guy, Johannes Kepler, usually just referred to as Kepler, and he was a German astronomer that used math to support the heliocentric theory. So helio, sun, heliocentric, everything revolves around the sun. He had some new ideas though. For example, he said that planetary orbits were oval, which our vocab word is ellipses, which is just a fancy word for oval. He also said that the speed of the planets changed throughout the orbit, going faster as they approached the sun and slower as they moved away, which turned out to be true. Now, there's one more fellow we want to talk about today, Galileo Galilei. It rhymes. All right, so he was an Italian astronomer, and he made all kinds of discoveries. He conducted experiments that disproved ideas that were long held as true. For example, Aristotle said that heavier objects fall faster. This is actually a misconception I think most of us go through as youth. Well, it's wrong. And Galileo said so after some experimentation. He probably dropped heavy stuff and then lighter stuff and was like, these are all falling at the same rate. It's true. Doesn't matter what the mass is. I know what you're saying. But Mr. Young, if you drop a feather, it falls really slow. That's because of like wind resistance, not because of gravity. Gravity pulls everything just the same. Let's see. Galileo also made his own telescope. He didn't invent the telescope, but he made his own telescope and then used it and math to back up more heliocentric theory. So more people saying the sun is the center of the universe or the center of the galaxy. He also invented the pendulum clock. So like, it goes tick, 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 pendulum clock. As well as the first barometer, which is used to measure air pressure. Like I have a barometer in my house. It predicts foul or fair weather. Thanks, Galileo. Here's a barometer. See, high pressure generally means good weather, and then low pressure generally means bad weather. You might have one next to a thermometer if you have like a fancy house thermometer. Alright, there's Galileo staring at the sun before it was cool. Alright. We're going to call it there for today and pick up with the rest tomorrow, which is new scientific advances. We'll talk about Isaac Newton, people cutting up dead bodies, the discovery of elements like, americanesium and uranium and gold and copper and things like that. Then we're going to talk about a couple guys, Descartes and Pascal. Oh, and the invention of the scientific method, which I'm sure you've learned all about at this point. All right, for today's assignment, we're kind of making a break from our normal textbook with a Yund original assignment. Let's have a little fun today, shall we? Galileo got in big trouble with the church with his heliocentric theory and whatnot, but our book kind of whitewashes right over that, which is no fun at all. We're going to explore a little bit of truth here that is whitewashed, probably because you're in 7th grade. Use your Google machine or your interwebs and tell me what Galileo did to anger the church and how they punished him. There's a little wiggle room on this one. It's worth 10 points, but if you write me a few sentences being like, Galileo did this to make the church mad, it was because of this. Here's how they punished him, they did this. That'll be good for 10 points. Remember, more is better, but you can be pretty concise and still tell me everything. All right, that's it for today. Tomorrow we pick up with part 2. If you have any questions, let me know. Have a good one.